Welcome to the first episode of the FamLee Farms podcast. I'm Justin, and I'm joined with my wife, Labrie.
Hi.
I really can't believe that we're finally doing this. Finally starting a podcast. We talked about it for a long time, of sitting down and actually just talking through things like we normally would, but instead of just doing it to ourselves, doing it on a microphone and sharing it with other people so they can learn as we learn.
Yeah. Really, because you do a ton of research. So there's a lot of things that we end up discussing that we find not only incredibly beneficial to us and our adventures and all that, but a lot of this information you've done a deep dive into. So like you find out stuff that most people don't even touch.
Yeah, and I think I like to look at things that maybe not everybody else is doing. You know, whether that's animals, vegetables, the style of growing. There seems to be, it's like anything. There's trends and there's things that, you know, you fall into what's cool at the moment. And there's all these different ways of doing things. And I think maybe there's ways that can fit other people's lives better we may not have thought about. And even if that comes to the nutrients that you get from certain animals, because in America, a lot of us are eating, beef, and we're eating chicken, and we're eating chicken eggs. And that's like the three main protein sources in this country. And when you really break it down and you look at those meats, while they're all good, they also carry a lot of things that aren't good for you in them. And there's actually other forms of meat and of eggs that are better for you than those that we so commonly eat. But most people that look into homesteading and farming turn immediately to those meats because that's just what they're used to eating, and that's what they see other people doing. And our hope is to kind of maybe open your eyes and broaden your horizons to some animals that you may not have thought of before.
Because you may be like us and have a very small plot of land and not be able to do, like to have cattle or to have even pigs or have a bunch of chickens to be able to sustain yourself on that. But there are other things out there that are going to be able to let you get a high production of meat or eggs, whatever it is that your goal is to have. So we hope to be able to show you that you can do this no matter what size of property you have, really.
There's a lot of things that you can do. I mean, I do hear other people talk about these things, but you hardly see it lived out. It's like given as examples of like, well, there are these things, but then they still are mostly doing cows, chickens, and that's it, right? Maybe some ducks, maybe some turkeys, but that's the primary animals that you see. And, we'd like to just show you what we do, and it's a little bit different, but nothing, it's not like it's extreme or crazy.
Nothing revolutionary, really. No. It's been done before and is being done by others.
And we're making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Yes.
So that helps to show people that side of things. But really, we're just a small hobby farm. And farm is loose. We're in a residential area. We're on a small plot of land, like she said. That's not where we want to be or where we wanted to be. But if you've been paying any attention to the news the last, 2 or 3 years since COVID happened, then you'll know that the real estate market went a little crazy. And we hadn't quite bought ourselves a house yet.
Yeah.
So we found ourselves to a small plot of land, a lot smaller than what we hoped we would end up with originally, and what we could have ended up with if we'd only, known what was coming and could have bought just 1 year earlier, really.
Or even we had started looking at houses back when we first got married, but not having ever bought a house before, or any of our close friends having actually gone through the process of buying a house at that time. We just didn't know what the process looked like. We didn't know what the actual money that goes into buying a house was and all this. So we just got overwhelmed, and we ended up missing out on a 10-acre plot of land with a decent house on it because we just didn't know any better. We thought we were going to need a lot more money to go into it than what was really going to be needed because we just didn't have that.
Yeah. And that's knowledge. A really long story, but we definitely can go into that in a podcast episode specifically, just talking about how we ended up where we are, even though our dreams and desires don't really match the house or the property we're in. But I think that's the case for a lot of people. You simply just don't have the ability, but you have a want to farm and to grow things. And we've found a way to do that in a small amount of space. We have, a very small, I guess you could call it like chicken run, because that's what we originally built it for, but we expanded it to house, 20 animals?
Yeah.
We have 22 animals in our lives. We have a cat and a dog inside, but then on the outside we have 15 quail, we have 2 lion head rabbits, and we have 3 chickens. And we can house all of those in a very small chicken run that's no bigger than maybe 15 by 6.
Yeah.
Something like that. And you can do this anywhere. And even the quail that we have, we're talking about these are our prime laying birds, because the chickens we got are an odd mixture that we can get into in just a minute. But we didn't, the quail actually could be done anywhere. If you have an apartment with a balcony, you could raise quail. And you may be surprised to learn, and I really do want to do an episode specifically on quail, because I think they're a very interesting bird with a lot of possibilities. But you may be surprised to know that most HOAs don't have a rule against quail. Because like all laws, there's gray area where they don't write everything out. And if it doesn't say in your HOA you can't have you can have it.
Yep.
And quail technically aren't a farm animal. They're more of a game bird. So that's another way to skirt a rule if you currently live in a place where you can't maybe do the things that you would like to do.
Yeah. And what's great about the quail is they're small, so you can have a lot of them, and they're not really going to take up a lot of space.
Yeah, and they're pretty quiet for the most part.
Yeah.
We've had a couple birds that were a little rough, and we can definitely talk about what led to that later, and how we resolved those issues. But there's so many different ways that you can do farming, and farming on a small scale. And really, like, if you've not found certain people on YouTube, like, there's people that you need to watch. Like, I mean, there's people in Florida that are doing market gardens that turn thousands of dollars of profit in front yards, and front yards that look beautiful. Like,
absolutely stunning.
And they're growing lettuce and broccoli and kale, but you look at it and you're like, this is like a fine garden, the way that you've done this. There's no flowers in here, but the way you've done vegetables is awesome.
You can do vegetables and it look like a work of art. Like, you don't just have to have flowers to make your garden look stunning.
Even somebody that you watch that I don't get as into, but she does a lot of gardening as far as flowers and things are concerned, she'll still end up doing planters and put in things like lettuce or kale in with flowers. And that's something that you can do, and not like, your HOA is never going to know. Your nosy neighbor down the street's never going to be mad whenever you've got like a beautiful planter or a beautiful front garden that integrates food right into it. Yeah. And that's just one of the many options. And that's another podcast idea. That's the thing about talking through these things on the podcast, is it's going to lead to more and more episodes down the road, which is a good thing for you and for us, because we're never going to run out of content at that case. But let's back up a little bit and talk about, like, we've used the thing FamLee for a long time.
Yep.
Why?
Because our last name is Lee.
Yes. That's pretty simple.
We're the FamLee.
And so we've tagged that onto a lot of things. This isn't our first foray into being on the internet. Now, we're doing things a little bit different this time, because as far as our farm, quotation marks, I know you can't see me, I'm over here doing air quotes, but as far as our farm's concerned, we've not done a blog. We've not even really launched an Instagram where we've actually posted anything at the time of recording this. There's one post at the time of recording this.
Counting the, like, main image.
So, anyways, though, but we haven't done YouTube yet. We've done all those things in the past. We've done a blog, we've done YouTube, we've done that. But we've actually never done a podcast. So this really is our first podcast. And really, we love to talk farm. We love to talk animals and learn more about taking care of different things. And we've got plans and plans and plans and plans that there's no way. I don't think we'll ever stop having plans. Even if we win the lottery, which we don't play the lottery, but if we win the lottery in life and somehow we
become... If your mom wins the lottery and we buy the family compound finally...
Or if we win the lottery of life and somehow this podcast takes off and we end up, being a Justin Rhodes or one of those guys that's getting all the views on YouTube doing the homestead thing, and we have the land. If you watch his channel, it just never stops. Yeah. Because there's always that next progression that you can do.
Listen, I'm already planning out the 5-acre farm. I'm already there.
Let me explain that too. So the 5-acre farm is, I told her I'm not moving for less than 5 acres. And she's like, why? And I'm like, okay, I'd move for like 4.5, but it's going to have to be the perfect 4.5, because and that's the thing. Maybe that's something that you guys need to keep in mind. It's something, again, that we'll talk about in more detail in another place. But when you're looking for where you want to farm and where you want to raise your family and have the land, of course you can do the whole buy as much land as you can get right away. That's like Joe Salatin's thing. Find the cheap land, buy it. I get that. I don't disagree with that. Start working, start farming. But if you're in a situation like us, we had to get a house. We were renting, and we were outgrowing the space. We have a child. We just couldn't do it anymore. So we had to buy a house. This was the only house that ever worked out. We spent a year, guys. Yeah. But we don't have much land, and we have awful soil.
Terrible. And like, it's not even just the soil. It's just the landscape itself. There's rock, not only in the ground because we're in East Tennessee, but just everywhere. The whole backyard is nothing but just like gravel.
Well, but the issue is years and years and years and years of massive oak trees. Like we said, we have like half an acre, if that, not even
It's
that.
0.33.
So it's tiny amount of land. But we have, 5 just in the land, not the wood line, but like 5 massive 60-foot oak trees in our yard that have been dropping, acorns for years. And if you don't know this, acorns cause your acidic level, your pH, to rise in the soil. And I think ours is we haven't done the soil test kit yet. I'm looking at it. We failed last year because of that, but we know the dirt's bad.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but you have the land. Do everything that you can do on that land, and then try to wait to buy the next thing until you can get the forever, or at least as close to forever as you can get.
Yeah.
Because 1 acre, when you really look at it, isn't that much land.
Yeah.
2 acres. Still, even 5 acres. You look at 15 acres and on an aerial view, and you see just what it looks like cut out, and you're like, wow, that's not that much land either. I mean, if we really wanted to be the true farmer homesteader people that we all desire to be, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I can only assume that's why you're here, unless you're just a friend that felt bad for us. But
hey, if so,
yeah,
thanks for listening.
We appreciate it. Make sure to share with people that are actually interested in the content. But no, but if you're interested in this kind of stuff, really, we're going to need 100 acres or something to really accomplish the dream that you'd want, and to have the space. Because if you're into this, you kind of aren't probably wanting to be in the city, to be close to neighbors, to hear other noises, and you're going to want to be off the road, and you're just not going to get that. But I said 5 acres is probably where we want to be, because then we at least have the land that we can spread things out a little bit, and we can get into dreams and desires all we want to, but who knows, where you're going to
Listen, you said 100-acre farm, and I was like, whew, I finally get my venue to where I could make it pretty and rent it out for weddings. I can have my flower farm where I can offer to do flowers for those events and whatnot.
Well, you're not wrong, but you got to remember is that the people getting married aren't going to want to hear the cows mooing and the hogs. It's just.
I know, that's why I said the 100 acres.
Yeah, you got to have them on the far end still, because them cows are loud. But it just depends, on what you need. But I do think that if you have land right now, learn to do the most you can do with that land before you get more land.
Yeah.
Because the more land you get, the more work it's going to be, and the harder things are going to be. Start small, start where you can. And even this small, with all the animals that we've acquired in 1 year, we've been in this property for 1 year.
We didn't even start acquiring animals, the outside animals. We got the dog a week after we moved in. We don't literally.
Not good at that.
But the outside animals, we didn't get those until springtime.
March,
it was 6 months into this property. So as soon as the weather was nice again, because we had a little bit of a rough winter with ankle surgery and whatnot. But again, that can be another episode and whatnot if needed.
Yeah. And speaking of injuries and rough winters, that's part of the reason we want to do the podcast now is like we said, we like to talk, we like to do research and find out things about animals. And even if we don't get those animals, there's so many interesting facts that may not be pointed out in a large format often about certain animals. But also, I've done something to my knee. I'm not exactly sure what from, web. Thankfully, I don't think via the internet that it's cancer. This is the one time that I searched a medical thing and it didn't tell me that I had cancer. But I've hurt my knee. I've been kind of out of commission the last week. And so I've been laid out on the chores. But at the same time, it's I want to do farm stuff. I want to talk farm stuff. I want to put all this because it's only more research time.
Mm-hmm.
The more time that you sit is the more time you're watching stuff about farms, you're reading more about animals and going in that direction. And so like I was like, I want to do farm related stuff, and this is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And so here we are doing a podcast.
Yeah.
But we can kind of get into like, make plan for expansion or like what we're going to do in later episodes of the podcast. I know that like we have more plans than we can have time or money, like we said earlier. Yeah. And it's like one of the things we want to get into is like we have the lion head rabbits right now, and they're awesome. Yeah. They're super sweet rabbits. One segment of this podcast actually, and I hate to be that person in a podcast who like sounds like they're getting to a point and then immediately switches, like they're not good at this, which we're not. But
we're new at this. We're learning.
But it reminded me talking about rabbits, and I do want to. In the beginning of every episode, I kind of want to talk about just like what's been going on the family farm.
Okay.
What's been happening lately, and so you can see where this is going now. And so, like, what was one major thing that happened this week with the rabbits?
So, as Justin said, he's been injured, so I've been having to do all of the evening farm chores, which 90% of the time he takes care of, because 90% of the animals outside are his.
You look at the ratios. Yeah, you can't argue that.
So it works out that way. But he's hurt, so I've been doing things that I don't normally do. And I had to feed the rabbits. We have like a hay feeder thing on the side, and they have little bowls in there that they don't go through every day. Well, their little bowls were empty, the hay was empty, so I needed to feed them something. I took down some rabbit feed, locked up my chickens, and all that. Well, I come inside and I go to bed and wake up the next morning, go outside, and the dog is acting a little crazy, first off. So that's my clue. So I go down there to let my chickens out, and the bottom bunny cage is open.
Yeah, our male Cooper.
Yep. And he just comes hopping up to me, thankfully. And I'm like, oh, hey, guy. And I go to grab him. He runs off, goes under the shed. But then he's like, oh, you got some food. Okay, I'll come back.
Yeah.
And I grabbed him up and put him back in. But yeah, he was out all night.
Yeah, all night he was out. And apparently he could get underneath the shed, which means because I didn't see how he got underneath the shed. And that's probably something we need to address.
Yes.
Which is sad that I'm not thought to do it. The chickens haven't figured it out.
No.
And the chickens are going to come back regardless, because they're going to realize how to get back in. But that's a good thing to talk about too, is like, first of all, it was kind of crazy. I'm sitting on the couch when she comes in and she's like, so, and goes through that whole spill. And it's like, well, I'm glad he came back. But that's the thing too, is you got to practice good stewardship with all of your animals. Because if we didn't have a good relationship with the rabbits, then he's not going to run up to you and be excited. And thankfully, we've developed that over time. Like, we can go down there and pet on them and love them, and they always come right up to the cage for us. And it's interesting that you mentioned the food thing, is because you watch certain people's videos, like Justin Rhodes is training those pigs.
Yeah.
And he's trained the pigs to recognize the food bucket. They do it every time they get piglets. They train them to that food bucket. So if they ever have to move them, if they ever get out, they can take that bucket and do it. And it turns out you can train your rabbits to do the same thing.
Yep.
And it can be very beneficial, because you never know what's going to happen. The quail thing that we have, hutch, I guess you could call it, the quail hutch that we have, not thing, we actually got from somebody online on Craigslist. And it was just such a good deal. We could have built the exact same thing, but we actually bought it for less than all the parts. We were so lucky. And when I went to pick it up, his kids had let the quail out, and they were all gone. And he had hatched them from eggs, and it broke his heart so bad. He said, I just didn't even want to do more quail. Now, I don't think you could teach the quail to come back to you in the same way that the rabbits do. But it's just saying, like, if you've got kids, if you aren't thinking, if you're not in the right headspace, or just if something doesn't get latched right, you just never know what's going to happen. And something could easily get out. Yeah. We actually, like, the chickens, from what I assumed, don't have an ability to get out. But I still normally, when I go down there to lock them up at night, I'll open it and just make sure I can see all three of them in there.
Yep, I do the same thing.
Because you just don't know. And I'd like to know that night that the chicken got out, instead of wondering what happened the next morning.
Well, and I hope it would never happen, but if something got in to their area and was hiding out in there, I would want to know before I locked him up that night and then came out to a massacre inside the coop.
That would be rough. Yeah, I mean,
So
even if you're planning to raise meat birds, like you're not just going to be hurt your feelings. You're going to be like, man, I hate that I put them through that. Like,
yeah,
right? These aren't meat birds, but I'm just saying,
yeah.
like that would be pretty rough to do that. Um, we've been really lucky because we do live in a residential area, but we have a good portion of woods right beside us.
Mm-hmm.
We have deer in the yard.
Yeah.
On a regular basis, we see deer in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been really lucky to not have very many predators get in and try to mess with our animals. I'm kind of surprised by it, to be honest, because we have seen we've seen skunks for sure. The dog got sprayed by a skunk one day, and that was awful. Bree claims to have seen a fox.
It was there. I promise.
I'm just saying, I wasn't here to see it, so I'm not going to say that it happened. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying that
I'm saying it was outside.
I don't know, but either way, but still, we know that there are predators around and that there are animals, and we know that there are foxes. Not maybe in our, like, I don't know for sure in our area, but you get on that like neighborhood app thing, and you'll see people, just up the way that live in a different style of area that they do get on.
It was just passing through. I'm telling you.
We do have a lot of cats though, and the cat, like, just wild neighborhood cats. But I'll tell you what, I like. It's like the same reason people have barn cats on their like larger farms is the same reason that I'm happy that I drive out most days and see cats just running around the neighborhood. They don't mess with you, and you know that they're keeping away mice.
Yep. And
rats or whatever else is
lurking. And you know what's great? They don't bring them to your doorstep.
Yeah, because they're not yours. Yeah, they're taking them to somebody else's doorstep and feeding them, and that makes it way better. And that's why we quit feeding the wild cats too, though, is because I put out food, and it wasn't like, but that same week the dog got sprayed with the skunk, and I said, okay, because I kind of wanted the cats to hang out. I was cool with it. Like, we have an inside cat for the same reason. I don't normally get an animal that doesn't have a purpose. I don't just want a bunch of, like, I love the animals. I do have a relationship with all of our animals, but I don't go. They
all serve a purpose.
But they all serve a purpose. Exactly. I don't go around buying animals just for that cute and cuddly feeling. Yeah. I want them to serve a purpose, and all of our animals serve a purpose. And that's the reason we got the cat, is because I'm like, we're going to have feed around the house and different things. And it's like, if a mouse does get in the house, I want an assassin. Yeah. I want somebody that's ready. And dude seems ready. Yeah.
We even bought the little mouse toy that has it makes a mouse noise. So that way he gets trained to want to play with that and attack it and whatnot. Now the dog did kind of start off as we wanted a companion. Like, we've went 5 years of our marriage without a pet. Like,
you went longer without a dog because of the apartment you lived in before we got married. They didn't allow you to have pets there either.
And like, I grew up with animals. Like, even growing up where I did, like, there was a time where we had bunnies, we had chickens, like, we had cats and dogs. There was always something soft and furry around to love on. And I had went a long time without that, so we kind of jumped in real fast with that and didn't.
But we still didn't want a dog that would just be like, because like, there's so many dog breeds that we like, and like, you think about like a Labrador Retriever is like one of the best dogs out there.
Yeah.
But it's not a good guard dog. Like, it doesn't provide that purpose. It's like, nobody's afraid of a black lab. Like, they don't bark at people normally. And so like, we may have not went out and bought like one of the like main protection breeds, but she does have German Shepherd in her. She's a German Shepherd Great Dane. Our son loves to tell people that everywhere we go. He tells everybody, even maybe sometimes she's not with us. Yeah, and he's still telling them about how his dog's a German Shepherd Great Dane. But she's a big dog. She has a mean bark. Oh, she's not a mean dog by any means.
Not at all.
But you'll hear other dogs bark in the neighborhood, and then you hear her bark, and it's like a deep, low rumble. And I know that if somebody came to the house and they heard that dog bark, they're not going to try to come in.
No, they see her and they're not going to try to come in because she's huge.
So I'm a giant. I'm 6'6", and I'm 6'6", and the dog doesn't seem that big to me because of that. But she's 90 pounds. She's a very tall dog. Every once in a while, the way that you look at her, I catch it. I'm like, oh wow, this is a pretty big dog, right? But I've never had a dog before that like you go to the store and grown men like move out of the way. And it's funny though, because like, kids don't have that fear, right? And so kids aren't afraid. They walk up to her and like, oh my gosh, I want to pet her so much. And it's like, that's cool. She's grown up with a 2-year-old, pulling her ears off every day, grabbing her
climbing on her, trying to ride her like a horse.
Like, she's not going to hurt anybody, right? But grown men will be terrified of this dog.
Yeah.
Women and children are cool, but grown men are like, that's a scary dog.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
I have had several men while I'm out and about with our toddler and the dog who literally see the dog step back in fear of her just because she's big. Maybe it's because her size gets exaggerated when I'm with her.
Well, I mean, they do it when I'm with her too. Maybe it's
yeah.
a double intimidation factor. I don't know. I'm not a scary man.
Yeah,
like, I don't know if you can tell by my voice. Like, it's not anything to be afraid of. But
I'm a 5'2" woman, so this dog looks really big next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she stands at my hip.
Oh yeah,
she's half my height.
I noticed that the other day. She's literally like half her height. I was like, wow. But she can walk her no problem, and that's a pretty awesome thing. But
the toddler can walk her.
The toddler can walk her, right? We put a lot of work in, more work than we've done with any other animal, really, because she needed it. But you know, she's still a good farm dog. You know, like she really loves all the animals and really wants to get close to them. But, you know, it's fun to have that companion that just follows you around. Like, we've got her trained to the point where, like, even when we're not in the fenced-in section of the yard, like, she's cool. She knows she'll get the zoomies and run to the edge of the yard and back, right? Yeah. And now we keep precautions in place to where, like, we can control her if she did, for some reason, lose it and want to go after something that she shouldn't. But, like, every time the quail have gotten out, like, when you go in there to feed them and the quail gets out, like, she's helped me get them back, man. Like, she's mobbed them and given them enough disorientation where I can walk up and pick them up and throw them in, because quail are fast.
Yeah, and she's not doing anything mean. She's literally just hurting it.
Yeah.
Like, she won't go try and bite at it, but she's just helping us get them.
That shepherd comes out somehow. I don't know how, like, that's the only part of her that does.
Yeah.
Sometimes the intelligence is not there, but, you know.
God love her. She's a sweetheart, but sometimes she's a little bit like the scarecrow from Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Well, she's about as good of a dog as you can ask for, though, really. But forever ago, we started talking about, like, future plans and things, and that got us onto the rabbit story. But back onto that, you know, future plans, we've tried to honestly look at this, and that's another reason for starting the podcast. I'm not going to try to say that, like, we're just wanting to share everything. Like, I do want to share things and help people learn from our experiences and learn the different view that we kind of have on different animals, and even open people up maybe who haven't considered farming because of the idea of the work that it is to consider some animals. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself a lot. But we do want to try to look at this as more of a business. Yeah. I mean, that's really part of the plan, is we want to start using our animals to be a source of income and not just a drain on finances. Yes. And that does mean also growing animals. And one of the animals that we're looking at is also getting into Angora rabbits. If you don't know what Angora rabbits are, they're kind of like a fiber rabbit. They produce Angora wool, which is, I believe, a sheep that also has Angora. I haven't looked into that too deeply. But they produce a kind of wool that's apparently very desirable. They can sell for, I think it's like $10 an ounce. And they go through about 4 pounds of fur on the high end a year. But if you are able to move all that fur at $10 an ounce, that comes out to a decent amount of money. It's going to pay for the feed for the year for that rabbit and probably some others. They are a more expensive rabbit. They run a lot more than maybe a lion head or another rabbit that's like that. But we are thinking about getting into those for both breeding, fiber, and then we really want to utilize, first of all, like we talked about, we have bad soil. And we want to be able to amend our soil. And one step in that is going to be the rabbit compost. Yeah. But we also want to use that to sell as well, because it's a valuable resource. We believe, and this is what's strange, is that we had a weird crop year in containers and in the ground. Yeah. And the ground, and we even planted ornamental flowers, and because we wanted pollinators. Yeah. But a lot of those didn't do very well. Yeah. And we watered everything. We took care of everything, but it's still nothing. There's plants out here that look great, but they didn't grow. Yeah. And it's not that
they're the same size. Yeah. They're alive.
I'm still not sure what happened. Yeah. But the containers issue that we had, I really question if we didn't see a similar issue. If you've heard of Roots and Refuge, she went through a whole saga talking about amending her soil because she bought manure that seems to have been laced with a chemical. Yeah. If you don't know about this, what it is cattle are fed hay primarily. And then if that hay was sprayed with a certain Roundup chemical that's designed not to hurt the hay but to eliminate weeds, the cows don't process that chemical, and it passes through them. And so when they use that cow's feces, I don't know a better word, to use that manure to make compost, that manure can carry that Roundup, and that can hinder your plant's ability to grow and to prosper.
Yep.
And so we had issues in the ground and in the planters, and we used the same compost, the same manure compost in both of those. And I really questioned whether or not that was the cause. And so if we could make our own compost, our own manure, first of all, from the rabbits, which from everything that I've read is one of the best manures you can use anyways. It's just hard to attain a mass quantity of it. So that's why they're not selling that. They're selling black cow, not black rabbit, right? But it seems like to be one of the best. But if we can utilize that for ourselves and see true results, I don't want to sell people a facade, fake thing. I don't want to sell people something that isn't true.
Yeah. Well, we already noticed a difference from when we got the rabbits and put in some of their manure into the garden. We noticed the change in the garden.
Certain things that I planted just with that did way better than anything that did with the manure. And
so we know that it does have an effect on the garden already. And like we tried a couple of things.
I'm sure that you can hear the cat. I'm not even going to deny that one.
Yeah. There's probably a bug flying around or something that's got in. Anyways. But we had tried some other stuff to boost the garden along because we saw that it was stunted. And they just weren't doing anything. And then we got the bunnies and we used some of their manure and things started going.
Things went a lot better.
Yeah. We didn't have enough time to get the kind of crop that we would wanted based upon how things got stunted and whatnot and trying to figure it out. We should have
tested the soil, and we're going to do that, and we're going to talk about whatever that comes back as, which I know is not going to be great. But I want to provide people with that service as well, because I think it's a good thing, and especially with as many chemicals are being poured into things, because we're not pouring those chemicals into our rabbits. And so if we can produce a high quality compost fertilizer, then we're going to do that. And I mean, we're even looking into a worm farm.
Yeah.
Not a legit like commercial worm farm, but like doing at least, we're going to start with one tote container of worms and do that compost, because I do want to do another video on compost and the different ways to compost, and especially like worms, because we have all these different animals, and what you want to do when you have animals is find cheaper ways to feed them, and that means feeding them from your garden and table scraps and things that you're not going to eat. None of our animals, we don't have pigs, so none of our animals are getting animal byproducts, right? But still, there's certain vegetables you can't feed to the chickens, and there's certain things you can't feed to the rabbits, and a lot of those are fruit.
Yeah.
And while you can't do only fruit in the worms can take the banana peels and the different things that, or the worms will take things that are like went bad. Like I don't want to feed the chickens even. I know some people may, and I'm sure it's fine, but I don't even want to feed the chickens with things that have gone bad.
Yeah. I don't know. We might just be weird.
Yeah, it just was weird, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you could get something just nasty.
Yeah.
Out of the refrigerator, and the worms don't care.
Yeah.
They're actually like, this is better. It's already halfway broken down for us.
Woohoo!
But yeah, so like we're thinking about the Angora rabbits because they produce the wool, and I mean it'd be cool to make something out of the wool.
Yeah.
If we can get to spinning it, that's a whole world that we haven't actually got into yet.
Yeah. We watched a video, but like, oh my word, I can't even imagine.
That lady wasn't even doing Angora, which seems harder. They were just doing like sheep's wool.
Yeah.
But it'll be a neat project, and especially like the wintertime. Like say you build up some fiber, and what else are you gonna do? It's not like the gardening's eliminated in the winter. We do have an idea for that too, involving grow lights, just to see what you can produce. We've been thinking about trying to grow an indoor tomato plant with no pollinators to see if you can self-pollinate it, but that's a whole story for another day. That's one of those experiments just to see if it's going to work.
Me.
I was thinking about it today, but because it's going to be easy to grow lettuce or any of the cole crops that don't need pollinating.
I mean, we already picked up one light, so I'm thinking about looking at my seeds and seeing what I got, and starting a couple because. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I've already got the seeds.
Like the reason that we've not done the soil test yet and we've not done the other stuff yet is because we do want to consider doing a YouTube channel just to maybe go that route as well and to be able to show visually things.
Yeah.
But we're not that great talking on camera. Somehow the podcast is easy. I don't know what the difference is about a lens in your face versus a microphone.
Well, the lens, it takes a lot of work, I guess. And like a podcast, we can do that in the car. I don't think if y'all don't mind listening to a crazy toddler as well. because he'll probably get in on that.
Yeah.
But we can do it after he goes to bed too, and like we're just gonna be sitting talking anyways.
Yeah. Well, but I think like I get more intimidated somehow by the camera than I do by this. Like I think it's a lot easier, and maybe it's because it's like I'm having a conversation with you, not just with other people.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've done a lot of different videos,
Yeah.
and still, whether it's scripted things, non-scripted things, like it's harder, and I feel like more pressure.
Yeah.
To not ramble, but I guess like that's what a podcast is just somebody rambling for a while.
Yeah.
To see how long they can go. And it's a good thing that we're rabbit farmers and, air quotes, but because we're taking all the rabbit trails tonight.
Yes.
It seems like hopefully in the future, podcasts are going to have a topic and we may bounce around inside that topic, but we'll stay in if we're talking about rabbits, we're going to talk a lot about rabbit stuff.
Listen, we're just following the Duck Dynasty method.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody can follow Uncle Si anywhere. That man, they'll say something and he goes off on a completely different thing. If you've not heard their podcast, which if you're listening to us and haven't heard their podcast, thank you. I don't know how that happened, but check them out. The Duck Call Room is absolutely hilarious.
I don't even normally care for podcasts, but that's one that I don't mind if he plays while we're driving somewhere or whatever. Like I'm just not that person. I do like the YouTube videos, which is why we do want to get back into the YouTube videos. But
it's more of a teaching aspect. Like we can talk about a lot on here, but unless we're showing it to you on that type of stuff that we want to, then you're just not going to be able to see it.
Yeah.
But another thing, and this is where we get into like animals you may not have considered and things like that, is like I really want to get some pigeons. Like I know it sounds insane. And again, there's going to be an episode about pigeons because a lot of people don't consider pigeons, especially even on a homestead. And I think that's because they don't want to eat pigeon, and I get that, and I'd have a hard time eating a pigeon too with the mindset. But if you ever heard of squab, and if you ever ate squab and don't know this, it was a pigeon. And that's some level of fancy food, in other countries. Well, but they're eating guinea pig and snails and things anyway, so.
Well, if the people listening are anything like me, I can't imagine myself actually eating any of our animals now. Like I have a hard time with that. Mm-hmm. If we have to, that'll be a great thing. I know that you would like to try some of our quail because it's supposed to be.
You raised it and it's supposed to be good.
Yeah, we raised it. It's supposed to be absolutely delicious on a grill. We've got an amazing grill that
we have a pellet grill, so a pellet smoker.
Yeah.
And so that just
it makes everything great.
Get rid of your gas grill, your charcoal grill.
Throw it in the river.
Yeah. Get a pellet grill. And you don't have to get one of them Traegers and all that expensive stuff. Like we have a pretty cheap, just big. Yeah. We bought the bigger model of the Pit Boss, and it's like the cheapest one you can get. Works flawless. I wish Pit Boss would. Hey, Pit Boss, if you hear this, call me up. I will gladly.
I use that grill like 3 times a week.
Men, if you want smoked food, that's the thing to get, because if your wife stays at home, she can do this. It is an oven that makes smoked food.
But you need to allow for more time than the internet tells you.
Yeah, I don't trust the internet. You thought Abraham Lincoln quotes were bad, but no, it's the website's telling you what your pit boss is going to do. Like, it's just ridiculous. Anyways, pigeons. Yes. Pigeons, Lavery. Pigeons are an amazing animal because once they've bred at your house in their coop, or what do they call it? A loft, right? But they've bred where you keep them. Once they've bred once and raised that baby and those pigeons will always return. And so if you want to think about like emergency preparedness food, a pigeon's pretty awesome because you open that door in the morning, the pigeons go out, they feed themselves, and they come back. They're pretty prolific breeders. They're going to continually breed. If you're looking for business opportunities on the farm, on the homestead, or whatever, just in case you didn't know this, I didn't know this, if you've ever seen a dove release at a wedding or whatever, they weren't doves. That's illegal.
They were pigeons.
They were white pigeons. And apparently, you're not even allowed to do a dove release. It has to be white pigeons that constitute a dove release. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things about this that people on the internet will tell you, and that if you're into farming, you know this. If you're into these animals and keeping animals, people have 1,000 different opinions on how you should treat them and what you should do.
Yep.
But the truth of the matter is there are 1,000 different ways that you can do it, and no way is completely right and no way is completely wrong. I say that to say that there's a lot of people that disagree that you should release the pigeons because they may have trouble finding food or getting back. But if you've raised your pigeons correctly, if you do send them out daily to go find food and they come back, and if you distance train them, meaning one day once they've had that baby at your house, if you take them and let them out and let them fly around, they come back. You let them do that for a week. Then you go a mile, 2 miles away from the house. Then you go a little further, then you go a little further. And as long as you never take them way far outside of that radius, they're going to be able to do it. They're going to be able to survive, and they're going to come back. White, obviously, is a color that's going to be easier to spot by a predator.
Yeah.
But pigeons are pretty resourceful, and I don't have a problem with it. Now, eating them, like I said, that would be weird. But let's just say that we're in a weird state. I don't want to be a podcast that's all Debbie Downer. There's a few of those. There's honestly people that I really like.
Yeah.
That I can't listen to their podcast because they fall way down a deep rabbit hole that I just can't get into. But if you do want to have, I do want to have the preparedness mindset. And if feed prices go expensive, or if food prices go so expensive that you can't afford to do certain things, these pigeons literally can feed themselves.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty awesome thing. So we kind of want to get some pigeons, and they're just cool birds. A lot of people think of pigeons as being nasty or rats of the sky or whatever. But when you actually research pigeons outside of New York City, they're actually not. They're actually really clean birds. They fly really cool. They do some pretty cool stuff. And even in New York City, I mean, that's where pigeon keeping really was a big thing for a long time. They're just a pretty awesome bird.
Well, and there's some very, very beautiful ones out there. We would probably end up with white ones because, again, we are viewing this as a business venture.
Yeah.
So
that doesn't mean it, but I mean, we want white ones to do the release type thing. I mean, we're just going to be honest about that. We like the idea and the idea of training them for that. But that doesn't mean that we'll only have white ones, because at the same time, people buy pigeons. Yeah. Because other people want pigeons, and they want desirable pigeons. Yeah. And so
designer ones.
And that's the thing too, is you don't know what they can throw. I've got this is kind of a rabbit trail, but a guy I actually talked to at work today that breeds Brittany dogs. I don't know if you've ever heard of those or not, but it's a breed of spaniel. And I was talking to him today, but he actually raises pigeons to help train the dogs. He used to do quail, but he's found that the pigeons are a little bit better of a thing for them to learn how to point and how to retrieve on. But he raises pigeons, and he talked about his dogs though. And his dogs are liver and roan coloring. But they do also throw the more traditional orange and white. And that's the thing, is you don't know what the birds are going to throw. They could end up coming in here and throwing all kinds of different colors. And that's just the luck of the draw, really, at the end of the day. I do have one here, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not, as far as plans for the future. But the goat talk has talked more and more in the house. And we really like the idea of, we have very specific goat wants. We want the Nigerian dwarf goat, and somebody told us to get the one that's naturally not got horns. I don't know.
I don't know that terminology.
I can't remember what the word was.
Yeah,
sounded neat.
Yeah,
but it's become up more and more as a dairy option. Not that we're really going to drink it. I mean, Oliver is a good test case for drinking some goat milk, because he's not going to care. I've honestly heard it's sweeter than cow milk, and I've heard that raw goat milk is better than raw cow milk, but I have read
that, but
and it's also really good for you.
One of the natural nutritionist people that I follow on Instagram, they put up a chart comparing store-bought milk, and then raw cow's milk, and then raw goat milk, and the goat milk did win out on everything, as being better for you. But you don't like milk as it is. I like milk with cake and cookies and in cereal, but we're not really eating that right now.
Again, if you ever needed something to drink that was rich and nutritious. But also there's soap and lotion, and I don't like goat cheese. I don't know what the difference is there. What? That's why I was afraid of goat milk for a long time, until I started reading, and people were seriously saying that they liked it better. And I'm I've still not had the opportunity to try it. I'll take a sip of anything, once, just to see what that was like. But I know that I don't like goat cheese. At least a lot of certain goat cheeses, because that's
the ones that we've bought from the store, we have not liked. And it's been in things to make the charcuterie boards and stuff for different events, holidays and stuff. But we bought it because it looked pretty.
I was like, that's a cool looking cheese. Let's try that. And it was with my mom the first time I had it.
Yeah.
Like, it was before I even like knew you. And I'm like, we're like, yeah, let's try this goat cheese. We've heard people talk about goat cheese, and we didn't know what we were buying. And maybe I still don't. But like, we just bought it. It said goat cheese. We're like, we'll get this one. And it was like musky. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I have heard, and that is the thing about like where we live now, is like I could see having a little goat and not maybe like actually milking it, because obviously the process means that the goat has to be bred and have a kid and then be continued to milk. And I know a cow has to be bred at least like once a year in order to keep milk production up. I don't know exactly with the goat. I've not dived deep into that yet, but I've heard that if you take a male goat and you have it with the female, that it's going to make the milk muskier.
Oh.
And that could be maybe something of what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's just a couple things. And then, like, I don't think we're going to have any bacon seeds on this property.
No.
Bacon seeds. There's somebody on Craigslist in our local area listed their piglets as bacon seeds. It's the funniest thing that I've ever seen on Craigslist. But I don't think that we have the property or the desire to do that. Our neighbor, that's what's weird, is we live in a super residential area.
Yeah. We are in the city.
Yeah, I mean, we get trash pickup.
Like, we are in the city. Downtown is like 2 streets over.
Yeah. I mean, like, we're gonna get leaf pickup here in a little while. Like, once all the leaves fall off the trees, like, we are in the city. But our neighbor has a pig.
Yep.
And then the road that's down from us that we come home on like every day is actually named after the people who used to farm the land that they used to own all of this land over here. And the son still owns cows on a section that they didn't sell.
Yep.
And you can hear him from our house. And somebody's got a guard donkey.
Yes.
I hear him.
I love that donkey. What I do not love is those dogs.
Well, yeah, we're surrounded by dogs that just never stop.
And it's because they're not worked. We can go into a whole episode about that, too.
Yeah, you need to know. That's the thing, is like, know your animal and know what it requires. And that'll be the episode itself. And that covers dogs. That even covers cats. Yep. Like, before you buy something, you need to realize what it is and what it requires. What it needs in its life to be happy. And a lot of people are buying dogs that just aren't happy. You know, and that's something I don't want to do. Like, I love a Great Pyrenees. That's a cool dog.
Yep.
But until we have land and we have either sheep or goats or, you know, whatever, I've seen them do chickens and things too. Yeah. But until we have the amount of numbers for that to take care of in the land for it to roam, like, that dog's not going to be happy.
Yeah.
That's just the plain and simple case of it. And so we don't need that dog.
Yep.
You know? But yeah, so no bacon seeds.
No bacon seeds.
Yeah. Even though it would be fun. And that's thankfully, like, that's my thing is, I could eat our animals if I took them to somebody else and had them clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like a Dexter cow. Those are
I'd
cool
have to,
cows.
like, not know that it was, I don't know.
No, I'd be fine. I don't care. I could eat just about anything that we have. Now, like, the bunnies are pretty darn sweet, but I could eat their kids. I just don't think I could kill them. And I don't know, I'm sure that people listening to this podcast that know way more than I do know about, like, what you do to take a bunny out. But unless you've got a 22, I don't know. And that seems like a lot of bullets, you know? So
they're fast.
Well, no. But I mean, like, if you're taking 10 rabbits for meat, like, are you really, is it 10 rounds or is there a different method? And if it's like guillotine, that one I can't do. The quail are bad enough with the scissors and all. I don't know if you know how you do that, but I don't know. It's all, farm life is rough.
Yeah.
When you really get into it. Unless you were raised doing some of this stuff, it's a barrier.
Yeah.
I mean, that's plain and simple.
That's part of my thing is the animals that we had when I was growing up. It was when I was very young. Like before preteen years. Like, I was young during all this. So, like, I just knew they were there. And I could go see them.
And they were cute
and fun. And eventually they went away.
Yeah. and like, we had, I grew up on a hobby farm too, but it was a legit hobby farm. Like, where my dad and mom had animals because they just wanted to have animals. And they ate eggs, obviously, but we weren't really eating meat from any of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely we actually know somebody who, she's a nutritionist, teaches at the University of Tennessee, and she wants to start a farm as like a learning farm for her students and like using grant money and stuff, which is awesome. but she will not, and it's a good thing to do, and her mindset's not wrong, but she does not want to eat meat unless it's like fish. I think that was it. Was maybe fish is the only meat that
I
she
don't
eats.
remember. Yeah.
Because she can't, if she doesn't think that she could kill it, she won't eat it.
Yeah.
Which I can't argue with that too much, but at the same time, like, nah, bacon's good. Like, I don't, like, them pigs are...
I don't want bacon seeds, but I'll eat me some bacon.
Yeah. But the pig, the thing about pigs, they just look nasty.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest.
And they're rolling around in the dirt, and I don't think that is on the list. Not for a long time.
No, there is that one pig that we saw, and I can't remember the name of it right now. It escapes me, but they don't rut. And they graze. And those seem pretty cool. But they still look gross because hairy pigs are kind of odd to me. You know?
They get so big. And then when it gets so big and it's hairy like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
It weirds me.
But our other plan that definitely is going to happen is we want to build some raised beds.
Yes.
And almost eliminate our one good patch of grass because it gets the most sun, though. And so, like,
it's sad, but it's a great spot to grow stuff.
Mm-hmm. We have to eliminate a couple ornamental trees.
Yeah.
That really only add a little bit of color in some of the year.
And it's only white. Like,
yeah,
it's not that great.
And like, it wouldn't matter to me if we didn't have these giant trees all surrounding the house. But it's like, let's at least clear these out of the way and be able to do something. And like the food fence kind of idea, like we want to plant obviously flowers.
Yeah.
But like we also like, I'm about to buy like a bunch of blackberries, like, you know, and just plant them all along the fence and let them grow up and have like an edible fence situation going on. And it also blocks out the road and people and things, which is always a bonus.
Which I wouldn't mind that one tree staying, but then like it gives shade for growing stuff along that area, so it makes that a little bit harder to plant and whatnot. But that one definitely has to go.
Yeah. I think we'll just get rid of both of them.
Yeah.
And then there's a tree next to the porch that we'll get rid of too, just to be done. But before we get off of here, because surprisingly we've almost talked for an hour. And that's
not surprisingly because it's us.
Well, but that's not including the time that we started on the other podcast, the true original episode that was lost forever thanks to the app we were using to record it. We've learned that lesson.
Yeah.
But we want them to potentially give us money later, so we're not going to talk bad about them. Because that's going to be our first potential payday.
It was just learning. Yeah. Learning process.
But anyways, no. So I guess I just want to talk about like what to expect in the future, and I guess that means more podcast episodes because somehow we've managed to talk and not just stumble around on our words. I'm not going to say we were perfect by any means. Let us know in the comments if this gets heard. But all in all, like I think we we'll be doing more of this, and I think we're going to do specific animal breakdowns.
Okay.
Like I said in the beginning, though, I do want us to take a moment and just talk about like things that's happened on the farm, like what's going on. You know, like what did we work on? What interesting animal things have happened this week? What are we doing? Did we get anything new? That sort of thing. And then it'll get into a specific subject, like specific animals. And I think maybe the next podcast is going to be about doing your own thing, or even better than that. Like I do think that that's going to be one of the next podcast episodes. Doing your own thing. Don't just follow and do exactly what everybody else is doing. Yeah. Find what's going to work for you and what animals are best for you and your family and your situation.
Yep.
Don't think that you have to have chickens because everybody else who does a farm has chickens.
And because chicken eggs, that's what you use.
Or if you don't like chicken eggs. Like what if you, or like what, I know you use eggs and things, but like what if you don't like eggs? Then don't have egg laying birds. You don't need them.
Exactly.
Unless you're going to use them for meat, you don't need the eggs.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to hatch them and sell them, there's reasons. But if you don't eat eggs, don't get egg laying birds.
Yeah.
Especially like we've learned too is like don't just think you're going to be able to sell all this stuff. Easily. Like or go in with that mindset of like, well, I'll just sell what I don't use. Like no, you need to either go in with the idea of like I'm going to make a sell at this, or don't get the birds.
Yeah.
And that's the easy of that. But I think the better episode will be just do it. We were talking about this the other day, and I'll kind of allude to it a little bit, but like if you've been looking at ducks or geese, or not geese are a bad idea.
Don't do geese.
Don't do geese. But if you've been looking at a specific animal, regardless of where you're at on your homestead journey, if you have the space, the money to do it, and a place to keep them safe, do it.
Yep.
Do it. Stop researching. Stop thinking like, well, should I not? And just get the animal. And here's why. because somebody else will buy it from you if it doesn't work out.
Yep.
That's
how we got our chickens.
Short of it. Yeah. But that's like, we could, like, and we used to worry about it all the time. Like, if you're buying something like a laptop, I get it, because you're going to lose money. You're buying a brand new vehicle, like, question that decision for a while, because you're not going to be able to turn around and sell it, and you make sure it's right. But the only way that you're going to figure out if a farm animal is right for you is just by buying it.
Yep.
I hate to go that deep into that subject already, but like, that's going to be something that you can expect to come down the pipeline. And you just made our Instagram, so you can tell people what to follow, so that way they can see, what's going on a more regular basis.
So it's FamLee, that's one word, and it's FAMLEE, because we are the FamLee, and .farms. So FamLee.farms.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, and that's where you can find us. I don't think she's done the Facebook yet. But
and
that's mainly just to sell things. Like, whenever we've got the different products that we'll be selling, that's the purpose of that one. But I think that's really all for this week. That's something to say is we didn't really talk about it, and this is probably going to change now that I think about it, but when we originally talked about podcasts, we said that we'd probably upload on Fridays.
Yeah.
That gives us the ability to hopefully always record on Monday, have the time to write a description, listen back to the podcast, all that stuff between now and Friday, and have it up on Friday. I can't tell you what time it's always going to come up by currently, because we've not really nailed that down yet, but I'm thinking Fridays on a weekly basis will be where we're at.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
We've talked about it. But yeah, I think that's all that we've got for this week. I thank you guys for joining us on the FamLee Farm. I thank you for being here. I hope that this episode was entertaining and wasn't a complete mess and, weird rabbit trail type thing.
But I mean, that's how any conversation really goes. Yeah. So
that's the thing. I hate to keep going. That's where we're at now. But I do want, like, our, what do you call it? Like, brand, I guess, to be real. Like, I don't want everything, like, I'm not going to let you guys see the house nasty, right? Or I'm not going to, try to come on here and be completely unprepared, but I want everything to be real. Like, if we do a video, like, we made the best pumpkin pie from scratch recently, where you actually use a real pumpkin. And I think that could be a pretty cool video because it is farm related. You're making scratch food from real ingredients at your house, at your farm. Yeah. But if we do that, like, we ain't got some fancy kitchen.
Nope.
You don't need a fancy kitchen to make good food. And so, like, I want our brand to be real. I want the things that we do to be authentic and what it's going to be like for you. Yeah. And to show you when things fail. And don't worry, because those episodes are coming. A lot of things have failed. We made a lot of mistakes already.
We have learned so much.
Remember when the chicken went in the woods? And we didn't think she was coming back because she hadn't lived here that long?
Yeah, she done jumped out the coop and ran off. And I was heartbroken and sad. And
we learned those lessons.
So excited when she came home, and I almost didn't want to let her back out the next day.
Yeah. No, I didn't trust her anymore. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen,
It was my fault, but
we'll get into that too at another time, a little bit more. But yeah, so we just thank you guys for coming. And one thing that we do want to do at the end of these different podcast episodes is maybe end with a Bible verse, because we are Christians, and it's interesting to look at, because it seems like most of the people in this community do seem to roll that way or end up that way based on what they see from the land. And I think that's an interesting thing. Obviously, I just thought of that statement. So our Bible verse isn't going to have to do with that. But I do think that, like, when you really study the land and animals and the symbiotic relationship that we can all have with so many different things and how things work together, it's hard to not realize that God exists and that he is there. But I just want to share one of our favorite verses. I think a verse that really spells out salvation. And it says in Acts 2:37, Peter's words pierced their hearts, and they said to him and to the other apostles, "Brothers, what should we do?" 38, Peter replied, "Each of you must repent of your sins and turn to God and be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins. Then you will receive the gift of the Holy Spirit." 39, this promise is to you, to your children, and to those far away, all who have been called by the Lord our God. I think that's a pretty impactful verse that tells us exactly what it takes to be saved. Faith, repentance, baptism, and receiving of the Holy Ghost. Yep. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.